December 19th, 1777. The blood freezes before it dries. 3,000 men, farmers, blacksmiths, boys who lied about their age, shuffle through Pennsylvania snow in formations that look more like funeral processions than military columns. Their feet wrap in rags because there are no boots. The rags soak through. The snow beneath them turns pink, then red, then brown as frozen blood mixes with mud. No British soldiers are firing. No cannons echo across the hills. The enemy doesn't need to attack because the Continental Army is killing itself. George Washington watches from his horse as men collapse, not from bullets, from cold, from hunger, from the kind of exhaustion that makes your bones feel like they're turning to dust inside your skin. He's leading them to a place called Valley Forge, a stretch of frozen Pennsylvania wilderness where they'll make winter camp. Except camp suggests shelter, suggests food, suggests survival. Valley Forge offers none of these things. This is the moment the American Revolution dies, not in a battle, not in a dramatic last stand, but in the slow, grinding mathematics of starvation and cold. The British Empire doesn't need to crush the rebellion. Winter will do it for them. Disease will do it for them. Hunger will do it for them. Enjoying the story? Help our work by liking and commenting on where you're watching from, and if you've already seen this story. The army that arrives at Valley Forge on December 19th is already a ghost. 2 months ago, they lost Philadelphia, the capital, the symbol, the heart of the revolution. The Continental Congress fled like rats from a burning ship. The British now sleep in warm beds 30 kilometers away, eating fresh bread and drinking wine, while Washington's men dig frozen ground with bayonets because they don't have shovels. By nightfall, 12 men are dead. Not from combat, from cold. The United States of America, a country that doesn't technically exist yet, is watching its army turn into corpses one frozen night at a time. Washington does something he's never done before. He counts. Not enemy soldiers, not ammunition, not strategic advantages. He counts how many men he's losing per day without a single British musket being fired. December 23rd, 18 dead. December 27th, 31 dead. January 3rd, 47 dead. The numbers climb like a fever. Typhus, dysentery, pneumonia, frostbite that turns fingers black and forces surgeons to amputate with saws that haven't been cleaned since the last amputation. Men scream through the night, not from courage, from gangrene. The huts they build, when they can build them, are coffins with doors. 12 men crammed into spaces meant for 4, no windows because glass doesn't exist here. No beds because lumber is too precious. They sleep on frozen ground, huddled together for warmth that never comes. The fire in the center pit fills the hut with smoke. You choose freeze to death or suffocate slowly. Most choose smoke. By February, Washington is losing more men per week than he lost at the Battle of Brandywine. The Continental Congress, safe in York, Pennsylvania, 70 miles away, sends letters, beautiful letters, encouraging letters, letters promising supplies, reinforcements, food, blankets, boots, gunpowder, hope. None of it arrives. The farmers who came to fight for liberty are now begging for bread, literally begging. They knock on doors of nearby Pennsylvania farms, the same farms they're supposedly defending, and plead for scraps. Some farmers give. Most don't. Why would they? These soldiers have no money. Congress prints paper currency that's worth less than the paper it's printed on. The phrase, "not worth a continental," becomes the era's cruelest joke. So the soldiers steal. They raid chicken coops, slaughter livestock, tear apart barns for firewood. The very people they're fighting for start to hate them. Local farmers file complaints. They call Washington's men rabble. They call them bandits. They're not wrong. This is what revolution looks like when the mythology dies. Washington writes to Congress, "Unless some great and capital change suddenly takes place, this army must inevitably be reduced to one or other of these 3 things: starve, dissolve, or disperse. Starve, dissolve, disperse. 3 words, 3 ways the United States ends before it begins. Congress writes back with more promises. Nothing changes. By mid-February, Washington has lost nearly 30% of his army. Not to British strategy, not to superior firepower, to logistics, to cold, to the simple, brutal fact that you cannot fight a war when your soldiers are eating boiled shoe leather because there's nothing else left. The desertion rate climbs. 5 men leave per day, then 10, then 20. They walk away in the night, barefoot through snow, preferring to risk death from exposure than stay one more day in this frozen hell. Washington orders guards to shoot deserters on sight. The guards desert too, and 30 kilometers away in Philadelphia, British officers eat roasted duck and dance at balls thrown by loyalist families who believe, correctly, that the rebellion is dying. General Howe, the British commander, doesn't even bother mounting a winter offensive. Why would he? The Continental Army is committing suicide. All he has to do is wait for spring and march through the ashes. The mathematics are simple. The Continental Army entered Valley Forge with roughly 12,000 men. By March, 2,500 are dead, another 3,000 are too sick to stand. The revolution isn't losing, it's already lost. While men die at Valley Forge, the real knives come out in Congress. February 1778, York, Pennsylvania. 70 miles from the frozen hell Washington inhabits, politicians sit in heated rooms and whisper a single question: should we replace him? The Conway Cabal, named after Thomas Conway, an Irish-French officer with ambitions larger than his competence, isn't a formal conspiracy. It's worse. It's a mood. A shared understanding among certain members of Congress and certain generals that George Washington is failing, that his losses outnumber his victories, that Philadelphia fell on his watch, that Valley Forge is proof of incompetence. They don't say it loudly. They say it in letters, in private dinners, in carefully worded suggestions that perhaps General Horatio Gates, who won at Saratoga, might be better suited to lead. Gates, the hero. Gates, the victor. Gates, who somehow forgets to mention that Saratoga was won largely despite him, not because of him. Washington knows. He always knows. He reads the letters that aren't meant for him. He hears the rumors from aides who remain loyal, and he says nothing. Because what can he say? The conspiracy isn't wrong about the facts. Philadelphia did fall. Valley Forge is a catastrophe. Men are dying. The army is disintegrating. He cannot defend himself with victories he doesn't have. So he does the only thing he can do. He stays. He endures. He watches men die and writes letters to Congress begging for supplies that never come, and survives on the same rations as his soldiers, which means he's starving too. But the real conspiracy isn't in Congress. It's 30 kilometers away. In Philadelphia, British General William Howe is making the most catastrophic decision of the war, and he doesn't even know it. He does nothing. The British Army, the most powerful military force on earth, spends the winter of 1777-78 in comfortable occupation. They host parties. They stage plays. They flirt with loyalist daughters and eat meals that would feed an entire continental regiment. Howe receives intelligence reports about Valley Forge. He knows the Continental Army is dying. He knows they're deserting. He knows one aggressive winter push could end the rebellion forever. And he decides to wait. Not because he's merciful, not because he's cautious, because he's convinced the Continental Army will collapse on its own. Why waste British lives and British resources when the Americans are killing themselves? It's sound military logic. It's patient. It's strategic. It's the mistake that loses the empire. Because while Howe waits, something impossible begins to happen at Valley Forge. It starts small. So small, most historians miss it. A letter arrives from France. Not troops, not supplies, just a letter, an offer. The French are considering an alliance. Maybe, possibly, If the Americans can prove they're worth the investment, if they can prove this rebellion isn't just a group of farmers playing soldier. Washington reads the letter and understands immediately. Valley Forge isn't just about survival anymore. It's an audition. The French are watching. The Spanish are watching. Every European power is watching to see if this ragtag colonial army can endure, can discipline itself, can become something resembling a professional military force. If they fail, the French alliance dies. If the French alliance dies, the revolution dies. If the revolution dies, the United States never exists. The pressure isn't just survival anymore. It's transformation. Washington needs a miracle, not a military miracle, a training miracle. He needs someone who can turn freezing, starving farmers into soldiers before spring arrives and the British realize their mistake. He needs someone insane enough to believe it's possible. On February 23, 1778, that someone arrives. He's a 47-year-old Prussian with a fabricated military title, almost no English, a history of exaggerating his credentials, and absolutely nothing to lose. His name is Friedrich von Steuben, and he's about to do something nobody thinks is possible. Friedrich von Steuben is a fraud, not completely, but enough. He claims to be a lieutenant general in the Prussian army. He's not. He was a captain. Maybe. His title of baron is questionable at best. His letters of recommendation from European courts are creatively written. Benjamin Franklin, desperate for any European military expertise, helped embellish Steuben's resume before sending him to America. None of this matters, because what Steuben has, what he actually legitimately possesses, is something the Continental Army has never seen: Prussian military discipline. He arrives at Valley Forge on a cold February morning and sees what Washington sees every day: men who don't march in formation, who hold their muskets 12 different ways, who have no standardized drill, no common manual, no unified training. The Continental Army isn't really an army. It's a collection of state militias with different traditions, different training, different everything. Steuben watches them for 3 days. Then he does something no other European officer has done. He doesn't complain. He doesn't lecture. He doesn't write reports to Congress about how pathetic they are. He gets to work. There's one problem. He speaks almost no English. His aide, a young officer named Pierre Duponceau, has to translate everything. So Steuben trains in 3 languages simultaneously. He shouts commands in French and German. Duponceau translates to English, and somehow the soldiers understand. But it's not the language that matters. It's the method. In European armies, officers don't train soldiers. That's beneath them. Sergeants do the drilling while officers observe from a distance. Steuben looks at this system and throws it out immediately. He starts with 100 men, hand-picked. He calls them his model company, and then he drills them himself. A Prussian officer, even a fake baron, on a frozen Pennsylvania field, personally demonstrating how to load a musket, how to march, how to turn, how to move as a unit instead of a mob. He doesn't send instructions through intermediaries. He shows them. When soldiers make mistakes, he doesn't punish them. He corrects them. Again, and again, and again. The soldiers are shocked. European officers don't do this. Officers are aristocrats, distant, untouchable. But this Prussian lunatic is in the mud with them, shouting in broken English, physically repositioning their hands on their muskets, demonstrating footwork like he's teaching a dance. Something shifts. The soldiers start to trust him, not because he's gentle. He's not. His cursing is legendary. When he runs out of English profanity, he switches to German and French, screaming creative combinations of insults that his translators refuse to repeat. But the soldiers understand. This man isn't mocking them. He's pushing them because he believes they can be better. Week 1, the model company can march in formation. Week 2, they can execute a proper musket drill in 15 seconds instead of 45. Week 3. Washington watches them perform and sees something he hasn't seen in months. Hope. Steuben doesn't stop with 100 men. Each soldier in the model company becomes an instructor. They train another company. That company trains another. It spreads through Valley Forge like a virus. But instead of killing, it transforms. By March, regiments that couldn't march in a straight line are executing complex battlefield maneuvers. Steuben creates something else too, a manual. The first standardized military manual in American history. Regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States. It's not theoretical. Every drill, every movement, every command is written in clear, simple language. For the first time, the Continental Army has a unified system. But the real transformation isn't tactical, it's psychological. The men at Valley Forge entered the winter as farmers, pretending to be soldiers. They're leaving as soldiers who remember they were once farmers. There's a difference. Farmers fight for their land. Soldiers fight for each other. Farmers go home when the harvest calls. Soldiers stay when staying seems impossible. Steuben doesn't give inspirational speeches. He doesn't talk about liberty or freedom or the righteousness of the cause. He teaches them something simpler: competence. The feeling that you know what you're doing, that the man next to you knows what he's doing, that when the order comes to advance, you won't trip over your own feet or shoot your neighbor by accident. Competence doesn't sound revolutionary, but when you've spent months feeling helpless, incompetent, and useless, when you've watched friends die from cold and hunger while the enemy sleeps in warm beds 30 kilometers away, competence feels like power. By April, the snow melts. By May, the grass returns. And the army that survived Valley Forge isn't the same army that entered it. They're still outnumbered, still outgunned, still wearing rags instead of uniforms. But they can march, they can drill, they can fight as a unit. The British, comfortable in Philadelphia all winter, have no idea what's coming. On June 18th, 1778, they're about to find out. June 28th, 1778. Monmouth Courthouse, New Jersey. The British are retreating, not because they're losing the war. They're not. But because France just entered the conflict. The alliance Washington needed, the one that seemed impossible in February, is now real. The British are abandoning Philadelphia, marching their army back to New York, and they're doing it in the middle of summer heat that turns uniforms into ovens. Washington sees an opportunity. The Continental Army, the one that was dying 6 months ago, intercepts them. What happens next shouldn't be possible. The battle is chaos. American General Charles Lee disobeys orders and retreats before the fight even begins. Washington arrives, furious, and does something his officers have never seen. He curses, loudly, publicly. Then he personally rallies the troops, reorganizes the line under direct fire, and holds position against British regulars in 100-degree heat. The British expect the same undisciplined mob they've been fighting for 2 years. They get Steuben's drills instead. Continental soldiers execute flanking maneuvers. They reload in formation. They hold their ground under artillery fire. They fight like a professional army because, impossibly, against all logic, they've become one. The Battle of Monmouth ends in a tactical draw. Neither side wins decisively. But that's not the point. The point is this: the army that should have dissolved at Valley Forge just fought the British Empire to a standstill. In the brutal Pennsylvania winter, 2,500 men died. Not from British bullets, from cold, hunger, disease, and despair. Another 3,000 deserted. The revolution survived, not because it was destined to succeed, but because a handful of frozen farmers refused to quit. Because a Prussian fraud taught them how to be soldiers. Because Washington stayed when every rational calculation said to leave. Valley Forge doesn't win the war. It prevents the war from being lost. The British realized too late that waiting was a mistake. The Americans aren't collapsing. They're consolidating. By the time Howe understands this, the French fleet is already crossing the Atlantic. The rebellion he could have crushed in February is now an international conflict he might actually lose. The United States survives Valley Forge by the thinnest possible margin. If Steuben arrives 1 month later, the army deserts completely. If Washington gets replaced by the Conway cabal, the unified command fractures. If the French don't send that letter, there's no reason to endure. If Howe attacks in February instead of waiting, it's over. The revolution doesn't succeed because of grand strategy or superior tactics. It succeeds because it survives. And it survives because 3,000 freezing, starving farmers made a choice every single morning. Stay one more day. That's not heroism. That's something harder. That's endurance without hope of reward. That's continuing when continuation seems pointless. That's believing in something that doesn't exist yet, because the alternative is unthinkable. Valley Forge is where the United States learned what it would cost to exist, and decided the price was worth paying.